A colleague of mine told me that I was not to officiate. So I did with this colleague what I usually do with my wife. I ignored her. Because as my cousin Devorah, who lives in Jerusalem, said, if there's one thing you can do for a mace mitzvah at this moment is to officiate. So that's what I'm going to do. My friends, we Jews have a custom when we gather for memorial occasions of beginning by reciting selections from Psalms. It's one of those acts that reminds us that the generations are connected one to another, those who come before us and those who follow. And of course, as you know, Bridge this morning happens to be my wife and Jacqueline's mother, Susan. God is close to the brokenhearted and helps those crushed in spirit. Hodieni Adonai kiti amadati amai mahi. Eda amechodel ani. Hine tefachot natata yamai v'cheldicha aig negdecha ach kol hevel kol adam nitzav sela. Ach betzelem yetalich ish. Ach hevel Yehamayun yetzipor v'lo yedam yosvam. Ve'ata ma kiviti Adonai tochalti l'chahi. God, tell us what our term is. Tell us the length of our days. Were we to know, we would know then certainly how fleeting life is and how quickly we gray. You have made our life just handbreadths long. Its span is as nothing in your sight. No one endures any longer than a breath. We walk about as mere shadow, mere futility as our hustle and bustle, amassing treasure, not knowing who will gather in. What then can we depend on God? We shall depend on you, for in you lies our hope. A good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. For honor in old age does not come from length of life. Honor in old age does not come from length of years. Understanding is the gray hair of humanity. A blameless life is ripeness of age. Perfection in limited years is like living for many. So a good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. And let us, with peace of mind, let this good soul rest. And finally, Mizmor LeDavid, a psalm of David. Adonai roi lo echsar bin ot deshayar benitzeni al me menachot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni b'ma'agalei tzedek lema'an shamo. Gam ki alech b'geit al mavet lo ira ra ki ata imodi. Shiftecha mishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neget hararai. Dishata v'shemen roshi. Koser revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yerodefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'beit Adonai. La'orech yamim. My friends, Psalm 23 is recited at just about every memorial occasion, and not by us Jews alone, but by those of so many other faith communities as well. I call upon my friend and colleague, Bishop Keith Butler, to share the English translation.
Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and he leads me beside the still waters, and he restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, and thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
My wife drafted her own eulogy, believe it or not. I'm asking Jacqueline to come up to share with us.
This is from Mom. Born in Bridgeport to Joan and Harold Commissar. Their baby bro, Stephen. Mom said I was great with him when he was born, but every once in a while she'd see me give him a little poke with my finger. I grew up in my beloved Fairfield, and I was fortunate to have Grandma Fisher, Jeanette, live with us. What a source of love and comfort. I was blessed. I walked over the bridge at Penn on a visit and fell in love. I was so happy to be accepted. I majored in history. Like my dad, I especially loved studying American history. I ran the quad grill at Penn. It was so much fun. I sang. After graduation, I commuted to New York to work at the RIAA, just as MTV debuted with videos. Worked with others to put together the White House Record Library collection, and then I decided to pursue accounting. Did books and taxes for several years. I didn't love it. I was a life member of the JWI, a life member of Hadassah, a life member of the Jewish Senior Services Women's Auxiliary, the Jewish Federation Community Relations Commission. I loved that, both the people and the mission. I worked for 10 years as a Penn Secondary Committee member interviewing high school applicants, and I did 10 years running No Secrets, No Shame, educating adults about preventing and responding to child sex abuse. This fed my soul, and I was devoted to it. It was my life's calling. I stopped only for health reasons. At the old Colony Y, I spearheaded their prevention effort along with Kim. I wrote Kisses from Dolce, truly inspired and dear to my heart. I'm a wife and mom. My daughter is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. A gift beyond compare. My husband's caregiving has been incredible. I'm so truly grateful for his and Jack's sacrifices and gifts. Thank you to the Hausman boys and their families. I've been blessed with great love and support, not just from family, but also from my friends and many of their children. Lifelong friends Cynthia, Kathy, Susan M., Susan B., Lauren O., Leslie A., Carly, Lydia, Stacy, Craig, and Carrie. Cousins Jackie, Jeff, Gail B., Larry, and so many more. I can't name them all. I loved being Comey to my pen friends. I loved being Auntie Sue to the Mason kids, and now their kids. True joy. I love you all. Please don't forget me.
Susan Brooks, one of Susan's college friends.
So I'm Susan Brooks. I'm Susan Beth. Call me Susan Beth. So we were both. She called me Brooks. I called her Comey. And you can see why. You know, when you go off to college, you meet a lot of people. And if you're really, really lucky, you meet a friend who stays your friend your whole life. And Lauren and Leslie and I, we were the four musketeers who, along with Comey, we just created this bond. And I was realizing the other day that 50 years just about that we all met each other, and the fact that we still knew and loved each other and stayed in contact was a pretty amazing thing, and I feel blessed by that. Comey and I really got together our sophomore years when the end of nights of studying or whatever else we were doing, we would kind of meet in my room, watch Johnny Carson, watch Tom Snyder, for those of you who remember who Tom Snyder was. And we would laugh and laugh and laugh until tears were rolling down our face. It was just, you know, we'd stay up till all hours, we'd listen to the Bee Gees. Sometimes we'd throw in a little Best of Bread and Dan Fogelberg, but this was the soundtrack of our college days. And you know, it was just, it was wonderful. And, you know, I was this week going back in my phone, and I have 6 years of texts. I don't know why, starting in 2016, back and forth of kind of reliving our friendship over these last years and laughing about what came first and, you know, thinking about when we were young and what we did and all the fun times. And she'd send me photographs that she would find, and I sent her photographs of things I would find. And it's an amazing thing to have. You know, we don't write letters anymore, but we have this, you know, record of what we shared. And the thing with Comey is she was always checking up on me. She would always like kind of know what I was doing and send me a note and send me, I expected, I found this note that she wrote me the Passover after my mom died. And she said, are you cooking for 40 people? Just thinking of you. Hope you're doing well. I said, just 16. I'm a little melancholy. And she wrote back, I'm sure. I hope being with them will lift you for a bit. Those lucky ducks get to eat your delicious creations. I'm sure that will lift them. Send my best to all. I'm thinking of you and here if you need an ear. Love you, sweetie. You're one of the marquee stars of my life. And that was Comey. And it was what I'd like to really get across is that in these last years, when she was suffering so much, she was so kind and generous with me and so interested and wanted to be involved in what was meaningful to me and so happy for things that were going on in my life. She'd always ask, she'd say, send me a picture, and I'd send her a picture, and she'd write, every single time, she'd write, thank you for sharing that with me. And I thought, wow, how anyone could have such a big heart with all that was going on with her, that she was so happy for me and involved and interested. And when she found out I was going to be a grandma, she was over the moon for me, and she picked up the phone, and she didn't always want to pick up the phone, and she called me, and we laughed and talked, and she said she hoped someday to meet my grandbaby. So really that's what I wanted to say, that I feel blessed to have had her in my life for these 50 years, and she was really one of a kind. One of her last texts to me, besides texting me every night that I was at the World Series saying, are you at the game? And I'd say yes. I'd send her back a picture of the field, and then she would say, okay, good luck. And she was, we did that for a few nights running this year. And one of her last texts to me, she said, we were talking about something, and then she goes, tired, gotta go. Love you, Bubala. And I wrote back, love you, Babala. And she laughed. And I love you, Comey. And I haven't really processed that this is where we are now, but I thank you for all the years and all the love. Thank you.
Before I ask Bishop to come back up, just a little intro. During my wife's first major hospitalization 44 months ago, he was medevaced up to Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston from the local hospital. And Jacqueline and I really thought that, you remember that? We thought that was it. And you've already heard some about Susan's strength and grit and determination. Now, she made it through very 6-hour, very serious surgery. He was in vascular ICU for about a week. And it was COVID with all those stupid decisions regarding visiting people in hospitals and whatnot. limiting you to an hour. And I used to go in around noontime when I finally could get in to see her. I had to pull the magic card out of my hat. I'm a rabbi. You're telling me I can't go in? I'm a rabbi, and that's my wife. You're telling me I can't see my wife? It's amazing where that can get you. Yes. One day, for whatever reason, I decide to go in the morning. I arrive at Brigham and Women's. Susan's already in a step-down unit. It's 10 minutes to 9. At 9 o'clock, she said, I want to show you something. She flips on the TV, and there's our friend, Bishop Keith Butler, with his TV show, Living Your Faith. I get in the car, I call him, I said, you're just not going to believe this. And I tell him about this. Listen, my wife was Jewish through and through, but your TV show helped her. And helped her tremendously. So it wouldn't be complete without Bishop sharing a few thoughts from his heart.
I love the Hausman family. And I call her my little girl over there. And of course, my rabbi. I want to, just for a moment, just share 7 points about being the First Lady. Whether you are a wife of a rabbi, or the wife of a pastor, my wife is a pastor's wife, or whatever, there are seven things that I think we should remember about someone like Susan. First of all, if you're the wife of a rabbi or a pastor, you're a public figure. And when you're a public figure, what comes along with being a public figure is criticism. Someone who takes the particular position of marrying someone who has dedicated their life to the service of the Word of God is someone who has to be willing to endure what comes along. I found out I've been in ministry for 50 years. And what I've learned from 50 years is that people are something else. I don't care where you come from. With what I do, I've ministered in Asia, and Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, North, South America, all over the world. And I found that people are the same. They have their same dreams, the same wishes, same criticisms. They operate the same way. And so any time you are the wife of someone who stands in this particular office, they deserve praise. The second thing that about someone in her position is that she must inspire her husband and build him up when other people tear them down. And she must be willing to stand by his side when he feels down or feels bad, or when he has a seemingly bad ministry or something else has happened. But to have someone like Susan, who was strong and was willing to stand by her husband regardless of what, is highly noteworthy. And then she must be willing to defend her husband against criticism and against critics, whether you're talking about boards or congregations or other rabbis or other people. But being willing to do that and jump right into the fray. This is a woman, from everything that I know about her, was strong, and is someone who was willing to stand for her husband. And then Rabbi would, as I call him, Rabbi would certainly notice number 4, and that is to correct your husband when necessary. He's told me many a day about stories when she set him straight. In fact, I've even heard that Jacqueline even sets him straight sometimes. So, but she was willing to do what's necessary. Even my wife, who couldn't be with me today, but she sends her love to you both and to your family. But my wife does the same. I have 2 daughters. One's a lawyer, and the other one might as well be. And they have a tendency to correct us when necessary. Susan was willing to remain positive even during desperate times. And when he told me about that, called me, I think I was in my car when you called me, and she's watching my television program. I said, really, what does she think about it? Thumbs up, okay, good. But she remained positive regardless to her condition. Strong woman. If you're going to be a woman of the book, someone stands behind a man of the book, you need to be someone who's strong. And then you must be willing to minister and protect your child. Like I said, people are something else. And what people will do at times is that if they're upset with you, sometimes they're cowardice. They will never say anything to you, but they'll say something to your child. You must be willing to stand up. And I know that she did that. And then lastly, you must be willing to continue to grow yourself. And as we've already heard, she was a woman who grew, continued to develop, and had interests. And because of that, her child is strong, her husband is strong, and the work that they do carries on. So, my friend, I know you will miss her greatly, no question about it. But would she want you to continue? I believe she would. Was she dedicated to seeing that the work of the Lord goes forth? Yes. And will you always love her and she will always love you? Yes. And so God bless the Hausman family. And thank you for having us. I want you to know there are thousands today. I pastor a fairly sized institution. And there are thousands of Christians who are praying for you both and who love you and want me to share. Lastly, I'm a member of the board of an institution called CUFI, Christians United for Israel. I'm one of 7 board members, the largest pro-Israel organization in the world of 10 million members. Talked with John Hagee the other day too. All of us send our love to you. We love you both. God bless.
My brother-in-law, Susan's brother, Steve.
Thank you all for being here. I'm still sore from being poked, and I still have all those dreams about being poked, sweating at night because she was poking me when I was young. I love my sister, although we were very different people. And 4 years ago when she got very sick, and we thought at that point in time we might lose her, we kind of got we got closer. I know we got closer because it was my turn now to take care of my mother. John and Jackie and Susan were doing it, and it was my turn. And that bond for the last 4 years grew. I went up there, I got my mother, I brought her back, and we would FaceTime, we would call each other, and we would discuss what's going on with Mom. I would discuss what's going on with her. My relationship with my niece and my brother-in-law grew because there was so much happening, and it was happening fast, that I wanted to be part of it. She wanted me to be part of it, and we just needed to be a family. And for all those years where I didn't feel like I was close with my sister, I now did. I love my sister. I think she laid out her own history very well. She really did a great job. But I just want to say this. I was very fortunate to have probably one of the best FaceTimes with her 4 days ago or 5 days ago. She FaceTimed me. I'm sitting there at my desk. I'm doing some work. And FaceTime goes off, and I have my iPad there, and I click it. And I open it up, and she's there like this. I'm like, what? You're playing air guitar? And in the background is Stevie Ray Vaughan going very loud. She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, you need to lift up the top of the guitar a little bit more. it was great. And I said to her, you know what? Someone is feeling awesome. And I'm just glad to see it. And it's funny how things can change in a matter of hours, because it was later that day and I knew whenever I get a call and it says Jackster on it, that something's up. And there it was, and they were taking Susan to the hospital. And unfortunately, we all know that she just didn't make it through the last part of this struggle. But her strength, incredible. But I want to make note to everybody of the strength of these two. Okay? I really do. Because I had my mom for 17 months. And it wasn't easy, but it wasn't difficult. She wasn't going to the hospital all the time. She wasn't on death's bed. These two worked incredibly hard. It was a 24-hour-a-day job. And I just want everybody to know, when you love somebody, that's what you do. You get together and you do what you have to do. And these two did it. And I love you both. And I thank you both. Thank you.
This is on my behalf. Dear Mom, we made sure that there wasn't anything left unsaid between the two of us. So this is less a series of things I wish we'd said to each other and more things we loved about each other. I wanted to write this while you were still alive, which we had discussed previously. However, as with all things, time got away from me. Maybe it's better this way. I'm sorry for the disjointed memories and thoughts that serves as your eulogy. I'm sure you wouldn't mind, but me being me, anxiety, I have to apologize anyway. It's hard to condense 29 years of my life with you into a eulogy. I loved all our moments, good and bad. But since I can only pick a few of your favorites, here goes. I remember a memory from when I was a teenager expressing the sentiment to you of, and I quote, "I don't want you to die." I was crying. I don't remember why I brought it up, and if my memory serves me correctly, it was before you got critically ill. You said, "I know you don't," but also iterated to me that that was how things went, the way of the world. We snuggled for a bit after, but that moment has always stuck with me. I thought I wouldn't have to experience your loss for a long time. In a way, I was right, and in a way, I was wrong. You dealt with so much meanness throughout your life. You were more than the terrible way some people treated you for a decent portion of your life. You were more than your weight. You were more than your chronic illnesses, and you were more than the traumatic moments that plagued you. You deserved more. Despite all of those terrible things, you always came out to the other side with more empathy, kindness, and compassion than anyone I have ever met. You brought goodness into the world. You were genuine. You were you. You taught me to unapologetically be yourself. Your indelible strength and compassion were the best teachers I could have. We were each other's person. No one understands me like you did. I loved our little traditions and sayings that we had with each other. I loved your stories. You knew that so well that you'd retell them constantly. It brought us both an immense amount of joy. I'm going to share a few. The first is how you talked about the joy you had when we had our nighttime routine when I was little. You particularly enjoyed singing to me to put me to bed, and I particularly enjoyed listening, even well beyond those years. As I heard from you more than once, and I quote, "I'd tell you to lie your kepi, and you would, like little Pavlov's dog." It always gave you a chuckle saying that. You loved talking about how when I was a baby, I would take down all the books on the bookshelf in the kitchen, you'd put them back up, and then yank them all down again like it was a game. A particular favorite memory of yours was a time I had been coughing, and because you were blessed with anxiety, you would constantly check on me to make sure I was all right. I was only about a year old, maybe slightly under, but as you went back to conversing with Dad, I eyeballed you and gave a little fake, and you reacted the exact same way. I cackled mischievously, and you and Dad looked at each other, and you said, "Well, at least we know everything's working correctly." One last favorite was when I was away at college. A repairman had come to our house to fix something. He came in and did what he needed to do, but you were amiable, and as you got to talking, he noticed all the photos on the walls. He asked you, "How many children do you have?" "Just one," you replied. You both looked at each other and then burst out laughing. As I got older, we'd travel together and see shows. You instilled the love of theater in me from a young age, and it was so nice to have that in common. I became slightly obsessed, and when I put on that one-man show of Rent in a car ride, bless you, you let me do the whole thing, despite the fact you probably wanted to just listen to the soundtrack. We sang together. Thank you for giving me your love of Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, Donna Summer, and Linda Ronstadt, among others. I loved hearing you sing their songs in the car as well as at home. You would talk about your younger years, covering childhood to teenagedom, to young adulthood to adulthood. I absorbed so much. And I won't share those stories, don't worry. I know what to tell and what not to tell. You were and are by far the most interesting person to me. On a serious note, you talk about how sometimes you wish I had a sibling to get through life with. Sometimes I'd feel the same way. Other times, not so much. I see why you thought that way, and especially in moments like these where I'd have someone who would feel the exact same way about your loss as I do. But selfishly, I must admit that while I'm sad I have to go through the loss of a parent alone, I'm also grateful that I didn't have to share you, because you were mine, and I was yours. I'm going to miss our snuggles, our singing sessions, watching Mom, Mike, and Molly, Family Feud, and QVC. I'm going to miss your laugh, both of them, how you hit your knee when you found something absolutely hilarious. I'm going to miss how deeply you loved your friends, extended family, and great-grandma Jeanette. I'm going to miss your wisdom, coming at moments when I myself am anxious or sad or unsure. I'm going to miss holding your hand, and I'm mostly going to miss the comfort and joy we brought each other. I have so many cherished memories, but they're not you, physically here with me. We had a tradition where one of us would say, "You're my favorite," and the other one would say, "No, you're my favorite." Mom, you're my favorite. I love you. All my love, Jackster.
I was looking at our wedding album today. The world was young, filled with hope, future ahead unknown. Although I will tell you all, she thought she was marrying an attorney. And I remember the first time I said this, I said, well, I'm still arguing in front of a judge. How did you do that? I said, the ultimate arbiter of justice in the universe is now mine. And I stood here before, matter of fact, from this rostrum, and also over on Green Street, my grandmother, my beloved friend, Cantor Yeshaya Grama, for those here who remember him, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my mother. 36 years in the rabbinate. I've buried 99-year-olds, police captains, true story. I buried 7-day-old twins, true story. But this time is different. Mensch plant und Gott lachen. Man plans and God laughs. Bishop, it sounds better in Yiddish. How many families have a rabbi in it but have a bishop? And how many bishops' families have a rabbi and a rabbi's family? But this is the effect that Susan had. The world was young. And then you reach this moment, and I'll be honest with you all, It is surreal. And you realize how short life is and how few the days are and how quickly they pass. In Hebrew, we say, beheref ayin, in the blink of an eye. And then hopefully you remember that the psalmist said, as long as I have breath in me, I will praise you. And you understand, with the passing of time, that it's the continuous becoming that makes this being worthwhile. One of my favorite quotes was from the author Nadine Stair, who wrote the following. And this is really the only thing I wrote for today. If I had to live my life over, I would dare to make more mistakes next time. I would relax, I would limber up, I would be sillier than I have been this trip. I would have taken fewer things seriously, taken more chances, take more trips. I would climb more mountains, swim more rivers. By the way, my wife was a lousy swimmer. I would eat more ice cream. Susan, I don't know how you could have eaten more ice cream. And less beans. I don't know how my wife could have done that either. We have, as Jacqueline could tell you, a case of low-sodium beans, cans, sitting on our dining room table. Corey, thank you for just volunteering to help eat all of those. I would have more actual troubles and fewer imaginary ones. And those of you who know what we've been dealing with over the past 44 months and really over the past 7 years know the totality of what we've been dealing with. My wife had few imaginary problems, but an ark filled of real ones. If I had to live my life over, I would start barefoot earlier in the spring and stay that way later in the fall. In my wife's case, she would yell at her husband for going out to get the mail in the middle of January with a t-shirt, gym shorts, and barefoot. And Jacqueline, you can try to stop me, but your mother couldn't, so I don't think you can either. I would go to more dances, I would ride more merry-go-rounds, I would pick more daisies. Howard Cosell wrote, when asked the question, how do you want to be remembered? Is that famous quote. He replied, I want to be remembered as a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather, because nothing else has any meaning. Flip that to my wife. And you know how she viewed her journey on this earth. Cross her is one thing, cross her family, another. And the only thing I know how to do is to work. Because Jacqueline and I were insistent that she remain home. My hours were long, and I have no regrets. Except, as I told her caregivers before she died, I would give anything just to hear her voice one more time. I would be remiss at this point if I didn't thank some people. On behalf of myself and Jacqueline. The members of our Torah congregation, most of whom were so supportive over this journey, in particular the past 44 months. You understood that when the phone rang, even on Yom Kippur afternoon, and I would have to rush to the hospital, true story, that was where I needed to be. And to understand that virtual was a big benefit in my care for my wife. Even if I fell asleep while teaching on Tuesday evenings. To the crew that came over to help us physically with Susan, adjust her in the bed, bring things over. The names too countless for me to recall and mention now because most assuredly I forget someone. Can't thank you enough. And as you know, when you came into the house, Susan was always, how are you? How's your wife or husband? How are your kids? And are your grandkids driving you nuts? To the team at Beth Israel Leahy, her primary care physician and her office, without their concern and willingness to be adaptable, because my wife was housebound for the better part of these past 44 months. We would have had a real problem, and they ensured that Susan could remain home. To her marvelous team at Boston Medical Center, BFC gets short shrift in Boston, but I'm telling you, they did all right for us. An incredible team of caregivers, doctors, nurses, social worker, hospice, and all. They were there with us along the way, though I think, Jacqueline, they couldn't believe how matter of fact we were. We knew more about the situation than they did, and they were the medical professionals. The wonderful people at Hebrew Senior Life Home Care, whose nursing staff, home PT and OT was superlative. And I want you all to know how great they really were. Susan was hospitalized this final time 2 weeks ago, this past Friday. But the week leading up to Friday evening was one of the best weeks physically that Susan had had in a long, long time. She walked, she sat up, she was at the table cutting vegetables to be roasted for dinner, air guitar with her brother. By the way, if you want to know what she was doing, Stevie Ray Vaughan, New Orleans Jazz Fest, 1990, with his brother Jimmy Vaughan. And the song was In the Mood by Freddie King. How many brothers-in-law would know that? You want to honor her, go to YouTube and listen to that show. It's magnificent. No regrets. She lived a great life and told Jacqueline and me on a few occasions not to cry. So I will do what my wife has asked and ignore her once again. Let none of you weep for me, especially you with whom I've smiled, nor bow down your head in utter grief. Put on no mourning as if the pall induces forgetfulness and conceal all we've done together. We have lived. Remember. Say not that I have died, that this is death. Say that I lived, enjoying each mortal breath. We have learned and labored and wrought what our hands found to do. We sought in quest to raise to nobler heights. My life was blessed in the living, my death hallowed because of giving. Life to me was a challenge. I was happy so to live. Those we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near, still loved, still missed, still very dear. Her final charge was not to forget. Let's all honor that wish.